What's going on, people? In this video we're about to break down episode 25 of Attack on Titan season 4, in which this new alliance to stop the rumbling runs into a few problems. The events of this episode laid the foundation for an all-out war between the Scouts and the Jaegerists, and in this video I'll be explaining exactly how it happened, as well as the hidden meanings and references that you might have missed. Before we get into it though, I'd really appreciate if you smash that like button and subscribe if you haven't already, as it does help out the channel. Okay, so in the last episode, Hange and Levi joined forces with General Magath and the Cart Titan, and there were two main reasons why this happened. Reason number one was that the captain was willing to do whatever it takes to get revenge on the Beast Titan, even if that meant siding with the enemy. Reason number two was that Hange didn't agree with Eren's plan to kill millions of innocent people, and so forming an alliance was their best chance at stopping the rumbling. Now, later that same night, we saw how Jean was just sitting in his bedroom with his hands covering his ears, and episode 25 shows us this same moment but from a different perspective. In this scene, the commander is outside his window trying to recruit him to join the alliance, while he was trying his best to pretend he didn't hear it. Jean knows for a fact that if he just ignores Hange, then he can live a comfortable life on the island just like he used to talk about in the cadets. Earlier that day, Floch even gave him a personal guarantee that this would happen, and he fantasizes about the future life of luxury he's going to have. One small detail about this fantasy is that his imaginary future wife has a scar on her right cheek identical to Mikasa, and in addition she also has similar black hair. The scar is such a precise detail that it basically confirms that in Jean's ideal future he's married to Mikasa and they have at least one baby. Anyway, in the end his conscience wouldn't allow him to ignore the commander, and he went outside to at least hear what they had to say. As he and Mikasa listened on, Hange explained their point of view, which is that Eren needs to be stopped because killing everyone outside the walls is taking things too far. Even though the rumbling will technically save people on the island, that shouldn't justify violence on this scale, and as a result, Mikasa does agree to join the alliance. On the other hand, Jean didn't agree with Hange so easily, and to be fair, he did have a good reason. The way he sees it, if they do somehow manage to stop Eren, then for decades to come, anyone who survives the rumbling will only feel more hatred and fear towards the island. In his mind, it's likely that at some point in the future, Paradise will be completely destroyed by other nations, given that no one would ever feel safe until they're wiped out. In response, Hange tried to argue that there might be some possible scenarios where they could delay the world from destroying them, but again, Jean highlights that they tried to do this once before, and it didn't work. What he's referring to here is the time skip between seasons 3 and 4, in which the Scouts tried to find peaceful ways to defend themselves without the rumbling. Ultimately, their search was unsuccessful, leading Eren to feel like the only way he could protect the people he cares about was to wipe out the rest of humanity. Despite that, Hange stuck to her guns, and she maintained that rumbling the planet was unethical, and believed that their fallen comrades also would never agree to this massacre. During this sequence, the vestiges of several former Scouts then appear behind them, and this moment was a direct parallel to Commander Erwin. In the Battle of Shiganshina, the commander said that he felt like their dead comrades were watching them, and now as Hange says a similar thing, Erwin has joined those fallen soldiers that once stood behind him. When it comes to Jean's choice about whether he would join the alliance, seeing Marco's spirit is what helped him to make that decision, and I'll explain why. 4 years earlier, when Marco was being cremated, Jean thought back to a conversation they had in which his friend praised him for knowing what needs to be done. Those specific words about knowing what needs to be done are what helped him to make the difficult choice to join the Survey Corps, because deep down, he knew it was the right thing to do. In the present day, history then repeats itself, as by looking at his old friend, he realized that the right thing to do in this situation is to join the alliance. That's why in the last episode, he said that Ashy Bones would have never forgiven him if he didn't help, referring to Marco's bones the day of his cremation. Now, flashing forward a bit, the newly formed alliance are awkwardly gathered around the fire, with everyone either standing or sitting in complete silence. Hange breaks the ice by asking for help with the food, and this eventually leads to the first of 4 main arguments in this episode. The core of this first argument is really about which side has been morally justified in their actions so far, and I'll try to break it down step by step. Firstly, General Magath believes that Marley is on the side of justice while Paradise is on the side of evil, and his reasoning is pretty straightforward. From his perspective, the Marlins were right to do everything they've done, since their fears about the rumbling turned out to be 100% true. On top of that, the fact the Scouts are now helping to undo the mess that they themselves helped create is basically an admission that they've been fighting for the wrong side this whole time. However, Jean disagrees with this obviously, and he reminds the general that all of this is only happening because of Marley's own actions. If the Malians hadn't kept sending Titans for a century, then the people of the island would have never had to fight back as hard as they did, and Eren's mother never would have been eaten by a Titan. If she wasn't eaten, then it's unlikely Eren would have the resolve to kill every single human outside the walls, meaning that in that way it is Marley's fault. That being said, the general counters this by pointing out that it was actually Eldians who began this conflict 2,000 years ago. Historically speaking, the Eldian Empire were the first ones to attack Marley with the power of the Titans, and that domination lasted for nearly the full 2,000 years. Looking at things from this angle, Marlians have suffered at the hands of Titans for far longer than the people of the island, so Magath doesn't really feel much sympathy for the things that Jean was talking about. Anyway, Hange then butts in to put an end to this particular debate, but it didn't take long for things to heat up again, with Annie questioning whether the scouts are prepared to kill Eren. Being the rational person that she is, Annie thinks that if they're going to stop the rumbling, then that means being ready to kill him if they have to. By contrast, Armin and Mikasa don't think that killing should be their main option, and they're hoping to speak with Eren to potentially talk him out of it. Annie's argument is that if Eren has enough conviction to murder the entire human race, then it's unlikely his mind is going to be changed by the power of friendship. Following this, she points out that even if they do get a chance to speak with him, if he refuses to stop, then that will only create a civil war between this new alliance. On one side you have the warriors trying to kill Eren to defend their homeland, while on the other side you'd have the scouts who'd be fighting against the warriors to protect him. Annie knows this scenario is possible because she's seen firsthand that nothing is more important to Mikasa than Eren's safety. One of my favourite examples of this was during the Lost Girl spin-off manga, which had a special chapter set during their time in the cadets. In that chapter, Mikasa went out of her way to confront Annie about her special ring, and warned her not to use it while doing hand-to-hand combat with Eren. For that reason, this prediction about a civil war is realistic, but Mikasa takes it as a threat, and the two of them prepare to fight there and then around the campfire. To me, this moment was reminiscent of this scene from season 1, because in both situations Mikasa was quick to draw her weapon against Annie, while everyone else was just standing around. In any case, the situation does start to calm down after the female Titan explains her personal motivations, and she goes on to say that she hopes they can talk Eren out of it, and if they can do that, then there shouldn't be a problem between them. Now, before we move on to the next argument, there was actually a brief moment where all the characters just sat down in peace. During this scene, Hange explains their plan to reach the Founding Titan, and essentially everything depends on the Azumabito clan. Earlier this season, it was shown that Hizuru had invented a new type of flying boat, and Hyomi brought it to the island so they could use it to observe the rumbling. With the Malian airships having now gone back home, this flying boat is their last remaining option to chase after Eren, but the problem with this plan is that they don't know the Founder's location. If they just fly around looking for him aimlessly, then they will inevitably run out of fuel, so what they need is solid information about which direction he's heading. This is where Yelena comes in, as Magath brought her along because she's the one person who might know this besides Floch. It's important for us to remember that even the euthanization plan involved doing a small-scale rumbling, so it's likely that she does have an idea of where the Titans are going. Based on what Magath knows, he assumes that Yelena should at least be able to make a guess about it, but as the leader of the anti-Malian volunteers, she didn't exactly want to help out Marley's highest ranking officer. Although her hatred for Marley has been part of her character from the beginning, Connie was still slightly confused by her refusal, since her home country is going to be trampled if they don't find Eren. The whole reason the volunteers came to the island in the first place was for the revival of their homelands, so it didn't make any sense that she wasn't willing to help. However, this was the point in the episode in which the truth about Yelena's past was revealed, and it was a lot different to the story she gave when they first arrived. As it turns out, she's been lying about her heritage the entire time, and in fact, she's a pure-blooded Malian just like Magath. After the raid in Liberio, Peak did some digging into Yelena's past, since the Cart Titan remembered she was a follower of Zeke. During their investigation, they discovered that she was born in Mali to a regular family, and it was only after she met the Beast Titan that she began pretending she was from somewhere else. If you want to understand why she made up this fantasy, then it's worth flashing back to episode 16, which gave us a hint about her underlying motivation. To put it simply, Yelena was obsessed with the idea of Zeke making history and becoming a legend, and she wanted to be part of that story. Her belief was that if the euthanization plan succeeded, it would be spoken about for thousands of years, and she wanted to be in the history books as a girl from a tiny nation invaded by Mali that gathered people together and made it possible. In response to Peak revealing her secret, Yelena then proceeds to roast everyone. The way she sees it, they've ruined the lives of countless innocent people, whether it was by trampling them, blowing them up, having them eaten by titans, and having done all of that, they think that stopping the rumbling will somehow make up for it. This is why Yelena finds it ironic that they're even trying to judge her, and during her speech she singled out specific people for their actions, including Annie and Reiner. This leads us to the final big argument of the episode, which surrounds the truth about what the warriors did to Marco. Back in season 1, the scouts realized that Annie had something to do with his death, since she had taken his ODM gear and tried to pretend like it was her own. Armin noticed this connection pretty much straight away, as he'd personally been helping Marco with maintenance and knew the equipment belonged to him. That being said, none of the scouts actually knew the full truth about how he died, until this scene. Around the fire, Reiner explains to the group how Marco overheard a conversation between him and Bertolt, in which they basically confirmed they were Titan shifters. If they allowed him to live, then it was all but guaranteed they'd be found out, so to preserve their secret, Reiner pinned him down while Annie removed his gear. Following that, it was only a matter of time until a Titan showed up, and the three warriors watched on in horror as it began to eat him. As we know, the guilt from this moment was too much for Reiner to process, and it led to the origin of his split personality. These two personalities were his way of coping with the grief, with one of them being a soldier that cared about his fellow Eldians, while the other was a warrior that wanted to capture the founding Titan and return back to Marley. Here he explains how the soldier personality took over while Marco was being eaten, and an interesting detail was that he went on to kill the Titan that did it. Following this confession, Reiner kept on apologizing for his actions even after Jean asked him to stop, and the reason he wouldn't shut up is because he hates himself. Even after all these years, he's never been able to forgive himself for the things he's done, since none of the people he killed were island devils like he was led to believe by Marley. Eventually, he just keeps on talking until Jean punches him in the face, and this savage beatdown was him releasing all the pent-up anger he felt towards Reiner. And you know, the fact that the warrior just sat back and let it happen is another indication of how little he thinks of himself. As Armin and Connie go to hold him back, Jean then starts kicking Reiner, but his second kick does accidentally hit Gabby, who jumped in to defend her cousin. Despite being the victim in this situation, she's the one who apologizes, and she goes on to explain the mentality that both her and Reiner used to have. Their goal was to eliminate the devils on the island so that the rest of the world would accept them as good Eldians, but as a result of their actions, they're now going to lose everything. An important thing worth noticing here is that General Magath was listening to the whole thing, and he realizes that everything Gabby just said was taught to her by Marley. Her belief that they could be accepted by killing the island devils, that's something that the general likely had a hand in teaching them, and it's why he begins to reach out. There's a part of Magath that understands how disgraceful Marley is for turning these kids into brainwashed child soldiers, but for now he's not fully ready to accept that, given that he's still trying to convince himself that they're the good guys. For that reason, he puts his hand down, however there is a clear look of regret on his face. The following day, the Alliance then make their way to the harbour, which is where the flying boat is being held, and along the way, Jean apologizes to Gabby for what he did. As they get closer to their destination, the Cart Titan already went ahead to take a look at things, and she reports back that the Yaegerists have locked the place down. Thanks to the steam engine, they were able to travel to the harbour way faster than the scouts, and on the inside, Floch is shown to be holding Kiyomi as a hostage. If you're wondering how Floch knew to do all of this, it's because in the last episode, he noticed that Mikasa had gone missing. This must have caused him to get suspicious about what she was planning, and so to be safe, he decided to detain her relatives in the Asian clan. Although he doesn't know for sure what they're going to do, one thing he does know is that by securing this place, there's no way anyone can try and stop the rumbling, because, you know, without the flying boat, it's basically impossible. On top of that, the Azumabito were the only ones who can get the flying boat ready, so if the Alliance is going to reach Eren, then they somehow need to get through all of these Yaegerists and save the Asian clan without getting them killed. Anyhow, that was my breakdown for episode 25 of Attack on Titan Season 4, and if this video helped you understand the episode in any way, then I'd appreciate if you dropped a comment down below and smash that sub button. Also, as some of you noticed, I wasn't able to do a review last week due to personal reasons for episode 24. However, sometime in April or May, I will be doing a full breakdown of part 2, just like I did for part 1. Thanks for watching as always, and until the next one, peace out.